Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Abundant Thinking, the podcast that helps you take your mindset from ordinary to extraordinary. In today's episode, I am going to be breaking down my 3-part system that I use to get rid of negative thought loops for good. Every single person has had an experience of a negative thought loop. It's thinking to yourself over and over again about certain negative things in your life, whether that be comparing yourself to other people, thinking that you can't succeed in something because you failed in it before, labeling yourself and saying that you're a failure, or saying should or shouldn't statements like, I should be more successful, or I shouldn't feel this way. In this episode, guys, I'm going to help you get over all of these things, and all in a 3-part system that I've been using for as long as I can remember to get rid of these negative thought loops for good. So let's get into number 1, and that's confronting your emotions. When you catch yourself in a negative thought loop, be honest with how you're feeling and what is causing it. Only you know. You can't rely on other people to have this magical key for you to be able to open up this door to your solutions. It's got to come from within, and it's got to come from you. Maybe even say it out loud. That's something that I've done, and it's helped me a lot in the past, is this action of, okay, I'm feeling this way. Why am I feeling it? A good example that comes to my mind is I remember in high school there was this guy who was pretty successful in the things he did. He was pretty popular. He kind of had everything. And I used to be very jealous of him, and I didn't like him. And I didn't really have enough conversations with him. I wasn't close enough to him to really know what he was like, but I just hated him because he had everything and I didn't. And up until the point that I really thought to myself, okay, why do I really hate this guy? That I realized, oh, I only hate him because he's doing better than me. I hate him because he's got things that I wish that I had. And saying it out loud was so freeing because you allow yourself to be content with the thing that you just said. Oh, he's got more than me. He's better than me. Yep, you're right. Now what? Once you say it out loud or journal or find a way to have a middle ground between the thing you're thinking and the thing you're saying, so, speaking, writing, etc., it allows you to have permission to feel the way you do. Oh man, this person's popular and I wish I had that, and that's why I don't like him. Once I figured out that that was the reason that I had this distaste towards this person, I started to realize, oh man, what am I doing? I mean, I really let this guy take up so much of my mental bandwidth just because he's doing better than me. Why can't I do the things that he's doing? And then from there get into various things. We're going to talk about number 2 and number 3. But sticking along with confronting your emotions, this is super important because if you don't confront your emotions, the problem stays. You don't know why you're feeling that way. Another thing is a lot of times we know what our problems are in this negative thought loop, but you want to try to make it specific. So for example, I was actually just talking to one of my friends and he was telling me how he's extremely nervous and he keeps having these negative emotions towards this thing that he's doing. And he recognizes that this pattern is caused by X, but it's still letting him affect him. So what I told him to do and what I recommend for you guys to do as well is after you might figure out this surface level solution or like the thing that's causing it, if you will, get even more specific, right? Okay, in this example, he wanted to run for a position in my business fraternity, and he was telling me how he's nervous because he's going up against other people, etc. And then from there, what I didn't tell him this, but what I would have recommended to him is, since you know that you're nervous about, running for this position, he has to make this presentation, etc., boil it down to something even more specific. Okay, well, how can you make sure that your presentation is better? How can you essentially, I guess to sum everything up, how can you pinpoint every single detail of everything that you need to do and work on it in order to get out of this thought loop? Because he's a very smart guy, and it's a little disheartening seeing people that are so good, such good human beings, going through things that they don't deserve and things that if they could look at differently could affect them in a different way. I think when you're honest with yourself about your feelings, like I mentioned, not only does it allow you to be content with how you're feeling and, give yourself approval, but it also opens up your mind to the fact that, okay, that's how I feel. This is, we start here. Where do we go from here? Because in your brain, when you're looking at this person, or I guess when I was looking at this person and I was like, oh man, I hate this guy. I hate his guts. I hate everything he does. I didn't have anywhere to start. It was like, oh, I just hate him because of this. Or I just hate him because, he has a lot of friends. I hate him because he seems like he's got everything figured out. He's really good with his classes. But instead, make it more broad so you have somewhere to start. I don't like him because he seems to have it all figured out and I don't. Boom. That's where you start. This is your point on the map, right? Imagine you're traveling somewhere. This is your point on the map. This is where you start. And then only from there can you figure out your solution by going to different destinations. Now that you know that he upsets you or you have a distaste for him because he's more popular than you and it seems like he has everything figured out, you can start to move in different directions. So be like, okay, let's figure out one thing. I was upset at him today. Oh yeah, because he was with a group of a lot of people, and I wish I had that. Okay, you figure out this person I don't like because he's got a lot of friends. Maybe this is more of a reflection on myself than it is of that other person. Maybe if I had that amount of friends, I wouldn't be feeling this way to begin with. And from there, what you do is you figure out yourself more than, the thing that is the negative thought loop. And once you figure out more about yourself, you're able to maneuver your way around these hard thought loops. So as another example, we'll use overgeneralization as an example. So think to yourself, I failed once, so that means I'm going to fail the next time as well. Confront your emotions. Why are you so scared of failing to begin with? I know for me personally, I like to fail. And I think it's a good way for me to stay within my boundaries and know what to do with the task that I'm accomplishing. If I fail, that means I just didn't go into the right direction, but I can adjust myself a little bit, right? You're driving on the street and you go, or not even the street, you're driving on the highway and your tires go a little bit past where you're supposed to be. You know how there's those bumps and you hear when you're kind of going off the road, you hear the little boop, 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 the little bumps in the road that are there to tell you, hey, you're going a little bit off track. Like go more to the left or go more to the right. That's how I think of failure. Same exact thing. It keeps you on track to stay in a good spot. So if I can have this mentality of bliss and the benefit I can derive from failure, why can't you? Well, think to yourself, okay, if I'm being honest, I'm so afraid of failing because I'm scared about what my family's going to think about me. Or I'm so scared of failing because I want to impress other people. I want to show other people I'm capable of doing this, and I feel like this is my only chance. Confronting your emotions is the seed that you plant to the next thing that we're going to talk about. So number 2 is reframing your thoughts. After step 1, so you planted the seed and you identified the problem, why it's such a big deal for you to begin with. Reframe your thoughts. Use this. This is the second step because all these first step, second step, third step, they all work together. Essentially, reframing your thoughts is thinking to yourself how this thing can actually help you rather than hurt you. I know it's easier said than done, but what I want you guys to think about is with this example of I failed once, so I'm going to fail next time too. You identified, okay, it's important for me. Failure is something that I'm scared of because I want approval from my friends. Then you reframe your thoughts and think to yourself, well, maybe the failure will put me in a better spot, like I just mentioned, to get the thing and stay more on track to my goals. You might also think to yourself, okay, why do I want to impress my friends so badly? What is it about my friends that I feel this need to have to rise up to this occasion for? If you reframe your thoughts, the opportunities are endless. I do this all the time, and it allows me to stay positive even in negative situations. I found that when something happens to me, I'll give an example. Last night I went to Panda Express with a couple of my friends, and there was this girl there working, and she was extremely rude to me and my friends, and she was just not, she wasn't speaking to us the way we deserve to be spoken to, and after we got our food, my friends were all talking about it, and they were like, man, that girl, she was so mean. Like, why did she say that? I didn't deserve it. And I was agreeing with them, but at the same time, I reframed my thoughts, and I thought to myself, I said, I hope she's doing okay, genuinely. And I hope that everything in her life is the way that it should be, because you never know what people are going through. This way, you realize that everybody's a human, everybody has their bad days, and she was rude to us doesn't mean she's a terrible human being. I mean, think about it. If you are the nicest person on the planet, like imagine you have that label of you are the nicest person on the planet, and then one day you have a slip up, right? And somebody asks you to do a favor, some stranger, and you say no, and the stranger gets so mad at you, and you can tell they're just furious. You end up walking away, it doesn't matter. But then imagine you're sitting in a coffee shop, and that same person sees you through the window and says to another person, that guy, he's a terrible person. I hate him so much. And then the person that the stranger's talking to says, what do you mean? That's the happiest, that's the nicest guy in the world. How is that possible? And then the guy goes, there's no way that's possible. He did X, Y, and Z to me. He can't be like this. My point is that people all have different perspectives of everything. And I actually think it's very interesting. This is a whole other conversation I could talk about, but people's different perspectives make up who they are. What they consume is the person that they become, essentially. And everybody has a different perspective. So while one person might think to themselves, dang, that person is so rude, why would she talk to me like that? I try to reframe my thoughts, and instead of thinking about something negative, I don't want to look at another person and say to myself, that person is terrible. I would never want to be like them. Although it happens, this person is extremely rude and I don't want to deal with them. I think to myself, maybe they're going through something that I don't know about, in which acting like that is warranted. And everybody has bad days, right? I mean, just because we caught this worker, on a bad day doesn't mean that this person's a bad person. Because imagine I go back there today and she's amazing, right? She's the sweetest person ever. Then my friends are going to think, oh, that person was so rude. But then I'm going to think, this person's actually not bad. She's nice. So reframing your thoughts and trying to make yourself understand that negative things could have positive takeaways. And throughout my time listening to podcasts, audiobooks, reading physical books, I've realized that a lot of successful people can take away small ingots of things, even if they're very small and even negative. The smallest things can become lessons to the best people because they choose to take things away. When something occurs, they can take away something positive from that experience. Reframing your thoughts after confronting your emotions, right? These are the two steps. Oh, this thing bothers me, and it bothers me because of X. And now that I know it bothers me, how could I actually take it away and maybe even make it a good thing, right? If my biggest thing is comparing myself to other people and I've recognized it, oh man, I really feel that I compare myself to other people. Then you reframe your thoughts. And first of all, actually, before we even get there, I'm getting ahead of myself. Determine why you compare yourself. Maybe because you want to be better than others. And then you reframe your thoughts and say, maybe if I'm not better than this person, I can learn something from him and take it away. Maybe if somebody's better than me at basketball, I don't have to hate them for it. I can go up to them and ask questions. I think one of the things in MMA that I've experienced is this exact same idea of not having an ego, which a lot of people actually talk about. But, you get submitted in jiu-jitsu, you don't get mad at the person and just start hitting them. You say, hey, how could I improve? What did I do wrong? So essentially what I was talking about with my highway example is once you get submitted, you made a mistake, you ask them what the mistake was, and then they tell you and you get back on the road. You get back into the center line. Reframing your thoughts is the most important thing that I talk about on this podcast, because it's this idea that your experiences you can derive benefit from, even if it's a bad situation or it's a situation that you think is very small and meaningless. Another negative thought loop is this comparison trap. So it's saying, Everyone else is doing better than me. And it's, oh, I'm this way when other people are like this. I would suggest checking out episodes 32 and 33. I talk about comparison in there, but make sure to watch the rest of this episode, right? For the whole comparison thing, you have to understand why comparison is such a big deal to you and why you constantly catch yourself comparing yourself to other people, which is the base, which is the root, because most people are not going to get to the root of their problem. They're not going to say to themselves, oh, I compare myself to other people a lot. They're not going to humble themselves to that. They're not going to drop their ego, because that's the only thing that protects them right now. When they constantly compare themselves to other people, it's so easy to say, oh, I'm better than that guy at that thing. I'm better than that at that person. But, dropping, quote unquote, dropping your weapons and saying, hey, you know what? I'm not better than this thing with that person. And actually, I find that I'm comparing myself a lot. Why is this the case? Then you start reframing your thoughts and saying, okay, instead of trying to constantly be the best, maybe I can learn from people. Number 3 is doing the thing. I think a lot of our anxiety comes from us not doing the thing when we know we should be doing it. When I'm nervous about an exam, I spend more time being nervous about it than actually, doing the thing. I know even Chris Williamson has this example where he talks about, in the time that you spend thinking that you need to walk your dog and meditate, and do your morning routine, you could have done all 3 of them. So doing the actual thing, you won't overcome anything by just sitting there. You can set a good foundation by confronting your emotions and reframing your thoughts, but then you have to have that action. The action needs to be there. You have the resources from step 1 and 2. Now use it to do the thing. And chances are it's not as scary as you think it is. And it is such a good skill for you to be able to confront these realities and these emotions. I think this idea of doing the thing is helpful, because in cases like overgeneralization, where you say, I failed once, so I'll probably fail again, which is a confidence killer, by the way, we'll get to that in a second. If you do the thing, you don't have time to think to yourself, I'm going to fail. You are going to fail. But that failure is going to allow you to stack up the bricks until you get your success. It might take you 1 try, it might take you 10 tries, it might take you 100, but you have to do the thing, because you can't let your problem stop you from doing the thing. I'm training for a fight right now, my first fight, and a week ago, had a terrible practice. We had sparring, and I was going through it, guys. I was getting beat. People were killing me. I felt helpless. I felt like training for this fight was just pointless, because I was getting beat either way. And I wrote myself a note, and I remember in that note on my phone, I put the words or something along the lines of the fact that this has been extremely tough and I feel like I can't do it anymore, but this is another reason for me not to stop, because what kind of a person would I be if I let this thing stop me from doing everything else? If I had one bad practice and I said to myself, that's it, I'm done with fighting, I can't do this anymore, I quit, I would see myself in a couple of years and think to myself that, dang, I really let that small thing stop me. Because in hindsight, I've had, 7 practices since the one I was talking about. So it's just another practice. It's just a bad day. When I was talking about the fact that overgeneralization is a confidence killer, I define confidence as proof within yourself that you're able to achieve the things that you said you would. So when you're overgeneralizing and saying, oh, I failed in this thing before, I can't do it again, you're saying to yourself that, oh, in the past, X has happened, which means in the future, I can't do it, because I failed in the past. Why would I be able to do it again? Confront your emotions, right? Say to yourself, okay, why is it such a big deal to me? Out loud. Be honest with how you're feeling and what's causing it. Then reframe your thoughts. And then go do the thing. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. It would be very helpful. I appreciate your guys' time, and I will see you guys next Tuesday. Peace.